Welcome back. GOP lawmakers in Kentucky passed legislation to ban gender-affirming care for transgender minors in the state on Thursday. The bill will now be sent to Democratic Governor Andy Beshear, who is expected to veto that proposal. But it comes just one day after a similar ban on gender-affirming care for minors went into effect in Florida. The Florida Board of Medicine says doctors will no longer be allowed to prescribe puberty blocking or hormone therapies to anyone under the age of 18. Sex reassignment surgeries will also be banned. These new rules were created by Florida medical boards. They were not approved by the legislature. Well, for more on this, let's bring in Dr. Kellan Baker, and he's the Executive Director of Chief Learning Officer of Whitman-Walker Institute, a national leader in LGBTQIA inclusive care. Dr. Baker, thanks so much for being here this morning. So how will this affect transgender minors? It seems like there are physical and mental health considerations here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me to talk about this really terrible development in what we know is the evidence-based practice of medicine that should be sacrosanct is now, in fact, being violated by legislatures nationwide. And it's really concerning for the health and well-being of transgender young people. There's well-established expert standards of care that show when you support trans young people, whether that's social support, listening to them when they tell you who they actually are, what kind of clothing they want to wear, what kind of hairstyle they want to have, or whether that's the limited medical interventions that might be needed by older adolescents in order to be comfortable in who they are and avoid irreversible physical changes that could harm their health and well-being over the long term. It's really disheartening to see these lawmakers inserting themselves between parents and their children, between healthcare providers and their patients, and between young people and the medically necessary healthcare that they need.
And Dr. Baker, let's try to clear up some misconceptions about the type of care transgender minors are actually receiving. What are the current medical best practices for gender-affirming care for young people, and does this ban even address that?
Yeah, this ban contravenes expert medical standards that have been in place for decades. When you're talking about transgender kids, as so many of these lawmakers are, we need to remember that we're talking about kids, about children before puberty. There are absolutely no medical indications whatsoever for transgender young people before they hit puberty. All that we're talking about is, again, listening to a child when they tell you who they are. When young people reach puberty, that is a time that can be particularly distressing for transgender young people because they know what that means for the irreversible physical changes that puberty brings to the body. That's why there are safe and effective medications that have been used for decades for both cisgender, that's non-transgender, and transgender young people in order to make sure that they're not going through puberty at the wrong time or going through a puberty that's not right for who they are. These are completely reversible medications. Once they are stopped, puberty resumes. What's not reversible is, again, going through a puberty that's not right for who you are. And that is unfortunately the really cruel and unscientific experiment that these lawmakers are running on young people in states across the country. Taking away medically necessary care is absolutely contraindicated by expert medical standards, and it is really an unconscionable intrusion on the practice of medicine. The ability of doctors working with patients, working with parents and other mental health professionals, as well as pediatricians, to make sure that young people can access the support that they need.
So many doctors themselves speaking out about this. Dr. Kellan Baker, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.